Welcome back, GriefSense Familia. I have a special guest for you all today, and I'm so honored and so grateful for this moment that we're about to have. It's been a little while. Things have been feeling extra griefy in my world, and I'll share a couple updates with you. But I want to say sometimes when you take a little bit of a break, that could be the best thing that you can do, because sometimes things happen unexpectedly and blessings find you all the time. And so today's episode is a direct example of that. And the special guest I have for you all today is Chris Punsalan. My fiance and I have been following him for years, since he had like 4,000 followers on Instagram, and we got to see the glow up. It's been amazing just to see the growth. And I can't wait to just get into it, talk about all things grief, all things creatorpreneur, all the things. So without further ado, Chris, welcome to the GriefSense fam, and please, please, please feel free to introduce yourself.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's amazing. I love the background. I love the energy. I am, I guess, a content creator. I've been passionate about making videos for as long as I can remember. And for the last 8 years of my life, I was a full-time caregiver for my grandmother, and she unfortunately passed away last year. And so I have been on this new journey of grief and figuring out what that feels like. This is the first time I've lost a family member who was extremely close to me. And I'm just going through all the feelings and all the everything that grief has to offer, all the good, all the bad. And so I'm so honored to be talking to somebody like you who isn't afraid to talk about grief, because at some point or another, I think we're all going to experience grieving. And I think it's important for people like you and I to speak on it so that other people who are going through it feel less alone.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. Yes. And I always find too that like when you experience grief, you unfortunately are like initiated into this club and gang that you've never asked to join. And it's like traumatic AF, but it's also like a blessing because you get to meet people that you literally would have never met unless you've experienced these really difficult life challenges. So um I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so sad and heartbroken that you're dealing with this and that you're navigating this. But I am grateful that, we have each other and we'll be able to impact a lot of people who are grieving. And the thing is, right, if you're not grieving now, you're going to grieve one day. Right. And it's
One
like
day.
normalizing the conversations which is exactly what you do throughout your content. I love it. Like just normalizing being vulnerable, normalizing grief, normalizing caregiving. Like you can become a caregiver at any moment, or you might have to be, taken care of at any moment because you can be medically incapacitated at any moment, right? And so it's like really, I mean, how do you prepare for crisis? It's not like you never know when a crisis is going to happen, but by talking about it, you're already kind of getting yourself in the mental state to prepare for that. So, yeah.
Yes, couldn't agree more. I think I love that you said that I was initiated into this club, whether I wanted to be initiated or not. And I remember the first time I ever spoke on my grief online, there were so many people reaching out to me saying, you were saying all the things that I felt, or I'm so glad that you're speaking on these things because it's preparing me for when I have to eventually, uh, you know, come across this in my life. And it was something that, like I said, it's not like I don't think grieving is something that people are looking forward to, but I
Right.
think as long as you know that at some point in your life you will experience grief or you will experience caregiving, and I always say that everybody at some point in their life is going to experience caregiving in some capacity, whether you're the one being taken care of or you're taking care of somebody, or maybe you just are doing it on the weekends to help out a family member. Everybody will experience both.
Mm,
So I think that's why it's super important for us to continue telling these stories and just
yeah.
have conversations around it, just to normalize it.
Yes. Amen. Yeah. That was great. Well said. So in true grief sense fashion, and it's definitely something I've uh, learned to do because it literally means the absolute world to me when someone does this. And I want to do it for you and your community as well. And before we started recording, you asked me an important question, why the angle of grief, right? 36 people have died in my life, which I've never met anyone else who has experienced that much loss at such a young age. I'm 29. Losses started with my father, who was killed in a hit and run and motorcycle accident years ago, all the way to losing about 5 people to suicide or had died by suicide, to my grandfather, who I was also a caregiver for. So I'm happy to kind of talk about that with you too. To even last year, meeting my dead birth father's family for the first time, for my grandfather to die 4 months later, and then my aunt to get killed in an accident 2 months after that. So it's been back to back to back trauma. Um, but somehow, some way, I've channeled grief sense. And it's really this word I've given to this experience, that no word exists in the English dictionary, in my opinion. There's one in the Japanese dictionary, ikigai, a little bit, but it's kind of like finding purpose, right? But for me, I take it a step further of like finding purpose after loss and wanting to, like, I don't know, I've always had an obsession and like fascination with people who were like going through these difficult losses but still finding ways to honor their people, create some dope shit, like just impact, their communities using their platforms responsibly. And so like that's why I interview influencers and creators who have experienced loss, because we can impact the masses to do the same. Like, hey, how are you honoring your person's legacy? Or in my case, you have multiple people's legacies that you're like moving with. And I get the question all the time, Mimi, like, how are you still here? How are you how are you doing this? And I'm like, honestly, y'all, I don't know. But I feel like I have the power, the fuel of my people's legacies like really driving me forward. So I don't know if you resonate with that, but that's really kind of the purpose of the show. Um and the question that I love and that, really inspired this is, what was your person's name? Right? Because everyone's like, oh, I experienced this loss. Okay, how? And the first question is, oh, how did they die? Like, what? You want to know how they died before you even like ask their name? Like, how they lived? What was their impact? Like, and that's what this show is for, to really like honor our people that have died, but also how are we living life? How are we living fully in honor of them, or how are we still navigating the hardest thing that we're ever going to have to experience and still show up every day with purpose, with love, with impact, and like creating, being an entrepreneur, or like having impact at work, whatever the case is, just like really making the most out of life while we have it. So with that, I know I said a lot, but I really want to know, what was your grandmother's name? And I know you've shared it in content before, but for the people, what was her name? What was her impact on you? I really want people to know who we're honoring today and how we can be inspired by her legacy and yours, as we move forward and like, really navigate this grief.
So good. There's so much to unpack there.
I know.
To answer the first question, my grandmother's name was Anicia Manipon. And what's funny about her name is that when she passed, there were many people who reported, which is weird, which is even a weird world to be a part of, right? Like to be a part of, like when things happen in your life, it gets reported on the news. But people actually were reporting her name incorrectly. I don't know where they got the information from.
Mm,
Um, I mean, her obituary. I mean, I think everyone's obituary is somewhat public information, but her obituary didn't have this name that people were running with, and so like people were just like incorrectly reporting my grandmother's name. So I love, that's why I resonate so heavily with
mm,
what, like, it's true, when people pass, the first question they ask is how did they die. They never ask what was their name, what was their life like. It's always like how did they pass. And so I love that you asked that question. To reiterate, my grandmother's name was Anicia Manipon, and she had such a big impact on my life. Even before I was her caregiver, she raised me. And I think a lot of immigrants can relate to this. Like when your parents are working all day long, and they don't have the money to send you to daycare, they have your grandma or grandpa watch you, or raise you. And so I was raised by my grandmother. And so she impacted me in that way. She was a public school teacher for 20 plus years in the Philippines, and then immigrated here in the 80s, I think. And that was how I lived my life. I lived my life with a teacher.
Mm.
And I hated it growing up because I felt like everything was a lesson, and I don't want to hear about this lesson that you have, because I want to live my life, and like I want to be carefree, and I don't want to think about the implications of my actions, and like I just want to live my life. And I didn't come to appreciate all of these teachings that she gave me
Mm.
until now. And I'm still unpacking all of the wisdom that she gave me during her life. And even as I was helping her throughout her daily life, like she just had so much wisdom for everything.
Mm.
And it's something that I cherish, and it's something that I feel is a responsibility for me to continue telling that story, to continue sharing the wisdom that she gave to me, because it would feel really selfish to have the platform that I've built and to not use it responsibly, and to
Mm.
not try and help other people who are going through what I went through. It would just feel like I'm wasting the things that she gave to me
Mm.
while she was alive. And so I feel it's my responsibility and my duty to not only continue her legacy, but just to share with the world the wisdom that she gave me while she was alive.
Mm. I love that. Literally, it's like literally you're living grief sense. Like that's exactly what it is. And like I can't tell you how happy I am. Like this is like this to me. Like I don't have a fancy house. I don't have all the money in the world, and I get a little bit emotional and stuff like that. But I'm still kind of like I've been a content creator for years, but I'm like starting now to kind of like make traction and stuff like that. But like this right here, like I can't tell you, it means the world to me because just experiencing loss alone, trying to gather myself, is is so hard. It's so hard. And people still expect you to be on go, and people you still have deliverables to make, whether it's for brand deals, whether it's for work, like whatever it is, like you still have to perform. And I just love meeting people like you who have like navigated this experience that like I've also experienced. Um and it just makes life feel like it's worth living. It makes life feel doable. It makes life feel okay. I can do this. If he can do this, I can do this. If we can do this, everybody listening can do this. And like that is what it's all about. I think it's like we don't need to give permission to anybody, but like by us sharing our stories, like it naturally does that, right? Like giving permission to people to just like, you don't need permission to live, but if it helps listening to other people share their stories, like please let it be the life affirming tool that it needs to be. And like live in that, honor it, embrace it, embrace the mess. And I just really love how you show up. I love how you share her story. Like I have to say also during the pandemic, like you held us down. Okay. Y'all held us down. Your videos, her voice, she's so cute. Like literally, I remember watching the videos because I at that around that time I kind of unexpectedly became a caregiver for my grandfather. And long story short, I told you my birth father passed away, but I had the blessing to have another dad, a stepdad who raised me, and his dad, my grandfather, we were really close. Around the pandemic is when he got like really, really sick. And I had never heard of anyone being in hospice for 6 months, but I guess it's true when they say black don't crack. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's some truth to it. I think there's some truth to it. Because he was just like walking around. Like, I'm like, he's in hospice. Like, hospice where? And honestly, I cannot tell you. Last night, I had like, you ever have those like, holy shit moments? So I was making a post last night on TikTok about my grandfather. His name was Leonard Wallace, just because in the spirit of names. Um, and I was like, whoa, timing and synchronicities. Like, what are the odds I'm recording with you today? And his
Mm.
birthday was yesterday. And I became his caregiver like during the pandemic. Like it's just like the synchronicity is. So I'm like, oh, okay, universe, okay, grandpa, I see what y'all doing over there on the other side, like conspiring and stuff like that. But I'm like, just the timing. But yeah, and like his legacy definitely inspired me. Um, just making decisions. And I always say like with grief sense, like life is a privilege. That's like the motto here. Life is a privilege. What are you gonna do with the one life that you have? Um, And yeah, his death kind of was a catalyst. Like he died during the pandemic. A lot of people couldn't go to the funeral, which was traumatic in its own in its own right.
Wow.
Um, and he just was my best friend. When you're a caregiver and you're young, like I'm really curious to know your experience. Like you end up asking questions that no one else in the family is asking. Like I ended up asking him, like, grandpa, like, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Like, are there some cultural things you want represented? Like, what do you want to wear at your funeral? Like, just conversations no one thought twice to ask. And I'm like, how are y'all not asking this man about to die soon? Like, and so like I was already like the seeds were being planted on like creating this podcast, but I knew that in order to do it fully, to do something that I love fully, I needed to make room. And so I quit my corporate job so that I could do it, which was really hard, but it was like, okay, I'm honoring my grandfather's legacy, and like nothing else matters. It's like I feel like unfuckwithable. I don't know if you relate to that, but yeah, just curious about your experience too, on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that you live with such a purpose, and I long for that for everyone to find the thing. Everybody has their own thing that is going to keep moving them forward. And I always pray for everybody, especially people who reach out to me constantly, like
Mm,
asking like, what is my purpose, or like, what do I do with my life? Whether they're a caregiver now or they were a caregiver and they just don't know who they are post caregiving.
mm,
And so my prayer for all these people is that they find purpose in the things that they do on a day-to-day basis, because those are the things that keep us showing up.
yeah.
Like in no world are you creating a podcast like this, or or building a community where you're speaking such on such rich topics and such deep experiences that you've lived. Like if you didn't go through all the things that you went through, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, right?
Mm,
And so my hope for everyone is to find the thing, the purpose in them that keeps them showing up every single day. And I think, I mean, I always say I don't think you've ever like fully truly found your purpose, whatever that is. I think it's a constant search, but
mm,
at least in the last, I don't know, 6 months, it has really been revealed to me that my purpose here is so many different things. It's to honor my grandmother's legacy, yes, to continue telling the story of what it was like to be a caregiver. But more so than that is to be an advocate for people who will
mm,
experience caregiving, who are experiencing caregiving, and who maybe experience caregiving who haven't put language to the things that they've experienced.
mm,
Because I
mm,
remember when my grandmother first passed away, I went to New York and I met another caregiver, and she was talking about her experience with her mother, who was in hospice, not for 6 months, but she was in hospice. Her mother was in hospice. And when her mom passed away, she wasn't as sad as she expected to be.
mm,
And I immediately felt emotional. I cried because like I felt the same exact way, and I have been feeling guilty for it ever since my grandmother passed away. I was like, shouldn't I? I thought I was supposed to be like really sad right now. Like I thought I was supposed to be sobbing at the funeral. I thought like nobody would be able to talk to me, and it was almost the complete opposite. And I was so confused by that. And when she said, "Oh, it's probably because you're experiencing anticipatory grief, where you were grieving the loss of your grandmother for 8 years since the moment you stepped into this role of caregiving, you have thought about the decline. You started asking, like, what do you want your funeral to be like? What do you want to be dressed in? Like, all the
right,
things that you
right,
asked your grandfather. And if you're not in that mindset of thinking about your loved one's death, when it comes, then it's going to hit you. But if you've already been thinking about it,
mm-hmm,
when it comes, you've already sort of prepared for it. So
mm,
when she gave me this language of anticipatory grief, it was like so many light bulbs went off in my head. Like, that's what I was feeling. What you experienced is what I experienced. And that's why I've made it my mission to continue telling the story, not just for the sake of telling the story, but in hopes that I can give language to other people who are going through what I went through.
yeah,
Because when you make those connections, like, oh yeah, I'm not the only person who wasn't sad at my grandmother's funeral,
mm,
or who for people who feel the opposite of like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life now that I'm on the other side of caregiving. Like my hope is that through all the content and through all these podcasts that I do, that somebody comes out on the other side with just a little nugget of something that they're like, yeah, the thing that guy said, I can't remember his name, but he said something that I resonate so heavily with, and that's what, that's my hope for doing all of this, is
Yeah.
that people just have these nuggets that they hold on to.
Yeah, like planting the seed, and it's like if it's not going to resonate now, it definitely will later. I loved everything you said. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, anticipatory grief. There and not to mention there's so many different types of grief, right? And like I feel like when you are a caregiver or even just like someone is dying and like facing death in general. I mean, if you think about it, we're all really facing death. We really are.
100%.
You don't know what time. Like, dude, my father died at 21 years old. My best friend died at I think she was 16. Like so many people in my life have died so young. Some people died also older too, but never getting to really live long, full lives. Or if they did live long lives, did they face racism? Did they face oppression? Did they face systemic neglect? Like, did they live a full life? You know what I'm saying? Like a privilege that a lot of our communities don't really get to experience all of the time. Um, but I think with that, right, when someone is facing death and you have that anticipatory grief on your mind all the time, it's also like I feel like we die multiple times during that time.
So good. Yeah.
And then after they die, it's like like a part of you definitely goes with them, but I definitely feel like the sadness piece, I was sad for sure, just like I'm emotional AF, but it's fine. I embrace that about myself. It took a
Same.
long time to embrace that. But it's like I was more sad because the physical vessel isn't here anymore. Like, you have your routines. Like go to my grandfather's house and take care of him. And like he would always have this thing, Chris. Oh my gosh. His big thing was drinking, which definitely led to his demise. Okay. He would hide freaking Coronas and I peeped it because I had to go to the car real quick and my fiance Willie was in the house with him. And something that we wanted to do because he had like trouble with a lot of swelling, like his knees would swell and stuff like that. And like I don't know, my fiance, he would make sea moss. He would make it from scratch, and so we started giving grandpa some sea moss just to kind of maybe help with the swelling, just help him feel better, more energetic, and it actually was helping him a lot, which was awesome. But in the midst of Willie trying to give him the sea moss and educate him, okay, had to go to the car, come right back. And I was just like, it was such a cute moment. So I was like kind of peeking from the side of the wall. I see this man, he like grabbed his rolly chair in the kitchen, brought it to under the sink where the kitchen was, and he had a whole stash of Coronas hid and trying to offer one to Willie. And then I go and I'm like, Grandpa, what are you doing? He goes, I'm gonna die anyway. Like that's who he was, like to the very end, like just comical and stuff like that. But with that, right, like those moments are just so rich and like you just can't make them up. But with that, right, I feel like when you're facing that, someone who is dealing with that, it's a way of like after they die, you're kind of reborn in a way. Like you have to reinvent yourself. And I think that's why I have this outlook in life, and I'm seeing it unfold with you too. With grief sense, like I just really feel like when someone dies in your life, that's a whole world, a whole universe. Like granted the whole world keeps going on, but our world just like stops. Like you have the routine, you had your daily things that you would do every single day. It was almost like autopilot. You have like but now you have to create a new autopilot. You have to create a whole new life. It's like, what is my life? What is my name? What's my purpose? It's like, what the freak am I doing? Like you forget who you are, kind of. And but then it's like once the dust settles and people go about their daily lives and stop checking on you, because that's also a real thing after the funeral, it's like, okay, this is life now. I have to reinvent myself. Um, and to think that I've had to do that over 36 times is like beyond me. But it means a lot to me, like seeing people like you kind of just be open about it, right? Because there's so many people dealing with grief right now that are still on their autopilot, whatever that looks like for them, going to work, doing the motions, doing even caregivers, right? They're going through about their daily routine, and they're going to kind of face this reality pretty soon. So I'm just curious to see, how that resonates with you, and any advice for someone who, is in the midst of, or had to, I guess, reinvent themselves or adapt to this, new normal.
Yeah, it's so good. I think about so many people that I've talked to who they just have to reinvent. Like reinvent themselves is such a great term because that's what it feels like. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have, especially when this person was such a huge part of your life, and for them to just like they were here yesterday and now they're not. Like
Like, what do
it's
you
such
mean?
a weird. Like how do you like what do I do with this new information? um, and I think I'm still trying to figure that out because it's been maybe like a year and a half since my grandmother passed, and we were in such a consistent routine. Like I could, I mean, I was in such a routine, and it's more so like it's more. I don't know. Routine is such a. I feel like
Well,
it
walk
doesn't
us
do it
through, like,
justice.
what did a typical day look like with grandma?
Typical day, just with everything that I did with my grandmother. It was wake up at 6, uh, go downstairs and pray that she's still breathing, which is like it lends to the
Mm-hmm.
whole like anticipatory grief. Because if you are walking into your loved one's room every single day, like, is this gonna be the day
Mm-hmm.
that they're no longer breathing?
Yeah.
That's like it weighs on you. It's like it's a heavy thing to be constantly thinking about, and thankfully I didn't that experience never happened to me. And I would help her get up, we would have breakfast, I would hang out with her, I would give her napkins to fold, because I gave her napkins after every single meal as part of her routine also, because it was exercise for her hands, and also I felt like it gave her a sense of purpose, because she felt like we were going to use these napkins throughout the day. And so she like took a lot of pride in making sure that the napkins were folded correctly. And if I ever messed with it, I would never hear the end of it. Um, so, and then I would help her back into her room. We would watch Price is Right, and she would fall asleep as most grandparents do. And then we would repeat that 3 to 4 times throughout the day. And that was my routine for the longest time. And I'm still trying to figure out what is my life without that. Um, and I'm so lucky that I was able to build a routine outside of that routine.
Mm-hmm.
I had the content that I was working on. I had this whole like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok thing going for me even before I made all the caregiver stuff. Like I mean, that's how you and your fiance found me, is through the music stuff.
Yes.
So I was heavily into making music production videos, and I built a whole business and a whole community while I was caring for my grandmother, and I was maintaining that in addition to also looking out for my physical health. I was like a avid gym goer, love running. And so those two things, that like making content and running a business, and also like the physical activity, like thankfully I had those
Mm.
that anchored me, because after caregiving, like those are still the two things that keep me anchored.
Mm.
And I think everybody has a version of that. I think everybody has a version of things that they are doing, whether even if they are a caregiver. I feel like there's still things that they do in their day that keeps them anchored, whether it's like that cup of coffee in the morning that they really enjoy, or maybe it's that TV show, or whatever it is. I feel like there's something that keeps us all anchored, even if we feel like we have no control of our lives.
Mm.
And so, like, I'm still trying to figure out what does my life look like post caregiving.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's really helped me figure out what that is continuing to try, because I
Mm.
think coming up with theories of what sounds good all day, like that doesn't really help me out. I've found that trying different things has helped me so much, whether it's like new content ideas, or maybe it's meeting new people, which is really uncomfortable for me sometimes. But even doing stuff like this with you, like this is stretching me in a way that I'm not really used to. Like I never really like did podcasts with other guests or with other people before. I'm not really like the social butterfly who's out in a social setting and will go up to people that I don't know. But like in doing that, I have met so many wonderful people. So just, trying new things has really um, helped me a ton in this time of figuring out what does my life look like post caregiving.
Mm, I love that. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. And I, I resonate so much. It's so wild. There's actually someone I would love to introduce you to. She's Filipina and I actually had her on the show. Her name is Lizelle. And her father passed. So they had went on vacation for Christmas.
Mm.
And unfortunately her father passed while they were on vacation. And so she had to come back home because he wanted to be buried home in the Philippines. She had to come home and then like what do you mean we're not going home together? So that was like, I like consider her like, and even you, not like, I just feel like when you have those grief siblings or your grief family, like just bonded forever. So thank you for being part of my life now. Um, but I actually decided to name her episode Grief Homes. And it's something I say. It's like one of my terminologies that don't exist in the dictionary that I say. Because like you always hear this quote. I think it was created by a white man or a white woman, which it's fine. A white griever, it's fine. But like literally one of the reasons why I created Grief Sense was to have a space for us, by us, with us,
Mm.
and like everyone needs a space. If we're for everybody, we're for nobody, and like I just feel like we need a space for ourselves as well, just to relate, connect, all of the things. And so there's a famous quote in the grief community that always says, grief is love with no place to go. I think it sounds cute, but I don't know if I agree fully. I feel like the love is here. We have to give it a place to go. And so I think what you were kind of naming like as anchors or trying new things, I call grief homes. Like, okay, how am I going to honor my grief today? Because I'm a lifelong griever, whether I like it or not. Here we are. So like, okay, am I going to go running today? Am I going to go to the gym today? What are my outlets? Essentially, it's outlets. What are your outlets? Do you make music? Are you cooking? Like I have so many not strange, but like hobbies, outlets that have found me that were like completely unexpected. Okay. Like speaking, I do public speaking. It's not something I thought I was going to do. It's not something I wanted to do. But because of grief and like my story, people contact me all the time to speak at universities or conferences or whatever. I'm a LinkedIn influencer, so I'm getting like opportunities all the time to share my story. Um, NBC found me earlier this year, and I got to share my story. I got to share my story with President Barack Obama
Let's
in
go.
in 2019. Like I got to represent Connecticut. That's where I'm based, in Connecticut, and share my story. Like that would have never happened if I didn't experience this loss. Um, but in the kind of the nature you were saying, like trying new things, right? Like this year, for example, I'm helping my cousin open up a cafe in Hartford. So whenever you find yourself in Hartford, you have to come through so I can get you some cafecito. Our specialty is a coquito latte. Have you ever had coquito before?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Okay, we gonna get you.
Yeah,
We gonna get you right.
let's do
And
it.
then also, so I meant to tell you this. So my fiance owns a restaurant, and actually it's down the street from our cafe, and it's called Soul Bowls. So it's like African American comfort food. So like mac and cheese, yams, collard greens. So just know if and when you're in Hartford, you're gonna be taken care of with the
Let's
food,
go.
drinks,
I love
everything.
it. Yeah.
um, but yeah, like I'm finding myself opening a cafe and like everything that's coming with that, like blowing up on Instagram and like community finding you and just like gravitating towards you. And her and I, we lost our grandmother, and that's how we honor. That's one of the grief homes. We get to give the grief of our grandmother a place to go. And it's a really cool thing to like visit when you want. And like, it's a really cool practice. But that for me has been a really powerful reframe. And I'm just wondering if there's been any reframes for you, whether that resonates or anything else, like just some reframes that what are some like common grief things that you think you hear other people say that maybe you think differently on, or that could help the community of grievers?
That's good. I love first of all, I love that you're trying to reframe that quote, because I think reframing things to make it make sense for you
Yeah.
and other people also who didn't necessarily relate to the original, but then relate to the reframe.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many things in there. I think one reframe for me was is actually the opposite of this entire podcast, because it's a comment that I've seen time and time again. It's the people that say, um, I think it's time for you to move on and
Mm.
put that past in the past and to
Yeah.
move forward with your life. And to me, it doesn't feel like I'm living in the past. It feels like I'm continuing to move forward. And because of this thing that I carry with me, I could
Right.
use it as a gift to give to other people who are experiencing it or who have
Yes.
experienced it. And that has been one of the biggest things for me in my life, because I could read that and easily be influenced to, yeah, you know what, maybe you are right, maybe it is time for me to stop talking about that time in my life and I need to move forward with my life and
Mm.
think about other things, which I think,
Yeah.
I mean, how could you even, I don't that listen, if that's the way that you need to move,
Right.
that is the way that you need to move, and I can't cast judgment on that, because that's right, what's right for you. But what's right for me in my life
Right.
is, it would be such a shame to not tell the world that I stand on the shoulders of giants,
Mm.
and to not tell people the things that I've experienced and the wisdom that I've learned and the things that I've learned while grieving. Like,
Yeah.
if I didn't tell people these things or share my story in this way, like, what a disservice to that time, right? What a disservice to, I guess, my grandmother. And that, and this is not right for everybody, but this is what's right for me, and I have to continue because it's my responsibility to serve other people, and my service to other people is sharing my story,
Yeah.
helping people who are grieving, helping people who are current caregivers or people who will step into that role. So I think that's been a huge reframe for me in the last 6 months, is that, because I see that comment come up so often of like,
Mm.
just, you got to put it down, Chris. It's like, it's been so long already, like, you got to move on with your life. And I would argue that I am moving on with my life, and I'm taking my story with me, and sharing it with other people, because I think it's a gift.
Mm,
So,
so good, so good. And I feel like that's what the world needs more of now. Like our world is hurting. Like we need more empathy, we need more compassion, we need more real stories. We need people being vulnerable. We need people just being real. Like I'm so over the superficial stuff of everything. And like granted, like, you know, we hear a lot of people talking about it like there's this AI revolution. Yes, we're in it. It's here. It's not going away. It's only going to get more presently
mhm.
involved in the things we're doing. Um and now you're seeing AI creators. Like I'm seeing these crazy AI creators on Instagram and TikTok. I'm like, bro, I didn't even know that was an AI. But then you can like notice when the like lips don't follow the words or like
Right.
whatever. But anyway, it's like you can't replicate this. You can't replicate real human connection and real life
Mm-mm.
stories. Like they could try, but they could never. And like I think as long as we continue to stand 10 toes on business on that and like leaning in with the grief and like you're not always going to be sad. Like I don't think grief is always a sad thing. Like grief and joy always coexist for me, especially like maybe not right after the loss, right? You got to let yourself kind of like feel all the feels, process how you're going to process, be angry if you're angry, whatever. But the other myth too, I didn't even mention this earlier, but like the whole 5 stages of grief, bro, come on. Like that's for me, no. Like there's no stages. Like for me, it's like everything all at once. Like,
Yeah.
and one thing I was not expecting to feel in grief is like jealousy. Like
Mm.
seeing I experienced it more when I was younger, but like when I was a kid and like my father died and I was so grateful because I have a stepfather, but like just seeing families with their dads and like like the jealousy was just so real. And I used to feel so shameful and guilty about it. But then like but I was also happy because like my friends have their dads, and it's like whatever, it's like multiple feelings all at once. I feel like is really what grief is. I don't know, but for me, I don't know. The whole 5 stages was never helpful, and like kind of giving power to like the reframe, what you were saying, like like that to me was more real. Like I would see a grief creator on TikTok kind of sharing their experiences like, hey, yeah, like, I got an award or I got a promotion at work and I'm really happy about it, but like I'm still grieving, like just multiple truths can always exist. But there was something you said earlier, and I definitely need to address it. And I love it. I love it so much. But you were talking about, like, when your grandmother was, folding the napkins, right? Like giving her that a sense of purpose. I feel like you also gave her such a huge gift and sense of purpose with the content. Like, you made your grandma
Mm.
famous. Like, she was part of it. She had her fans. Like, we had the little stickers and the pins and the, like, I feel like the merch, like, you gave her such a gift that, like, you just, it's priceless, and so, like, I want to know a little bit more about that too. How do you think that experience was? Like, did she ever, like, thank you for that? Did she ever look forward to filming content every day? Like, I feel like that's so beautiful, and people don't really get to hear stories like that.
Yeah, what's interesting about the content is early on when I was making videos with my grandmother, I have always tried to explain what it was that was going on. Um,
Yeah.
but I always tell people to get my grandmother to understand what was going on, you would first have to explain what the internet even is.
Hmm.
And if you don't, like, I don't even know how to start with that. Like, how do you explain what the internet is? And like every time that I would show her, like, I tried so many different angles of explaining to my grandmother that we're making these videos. And one of those ways would be like I would have my phone and I would show the front camera and she would see it and she would just think it's a mirror. Like, she had no concept of it being like this is
Wow.
a video, And I think there's a sense of beauty in that, but there's also I guess I was riding a fine line because people always were commenting like, did you get your grandmother's consent for this? Did you ask her
Mm,
if she was okay for her to be in the videos? Which are valid points. And I never, and to answer those bluntly, no, I didn't get the consent, or I never got a chance to ask her what she actually thinks of the videos that I'm creating online.
mm,
I tried, but I just couldn't get her to grasp that idea. And so that's why I thought it was so important for me to be very intentional with the things that I create. Never asked her to say anything specific. There were, I can't even tell. I mean, there were family people. There were people in my family requesting, like when the videos were exploding, there were people in my family that were asking, like, "Hey, can you get grandma to say, like, hello to these family members so that they could have like this video to show their other friends, like, hey, I know her, like she used
mm.
to be my teacher, or she's like we're related." Never did any of that. And so I tried to put these guardrails
Mhm.
for the stuff that I would put out online because I couldn't fully get verbal consent from my grandmother that it was okay to put these videos out. So I tried to be very responsible with that. To speak on the pins and the merchandise and stuff, that I never set out to like make an online store about like to put my grandmother's face on a pin and like sell it. It really came from the community. Like the community, like were begging for some sort of merchandise or something to commemorate this really special time on the internet for them. So people were like, "Hey, can we have pins? Hey, can we have shirts? Hey, can we have this? Hey, can we have that?" And people just started sending me stuff to create, like, "Hey, can
Mhm.
you turn this? I'm an artist and I turn this your grandmother's face into like a thing, can you like turn it into a shirt?" And eventually I just made one, and like it completely like exploded online and people loved it. And then I started to think about like, this is less about me trying to make a quick buck off this internet thing that I'm experiencing, and it's more so memorabilia, because
Yes.
I can't even tell you how many times I've given a pin to somebody and they say, "Wow, this reminds me so much of my grandmother.
Yes.
This this makes me think." And like I've given it to people and they've cried because they instantly are taken back to when their grandparents were alive because of this little thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the posture of my heart when we were selling these pins. And I was able to tell my grandmother that we did have this business. I had to say that we had a storefront because that was her frame of reference. Like she knew
Right.
about storefronts. I had to tell her like it was around the corner and that one day I'll take her to the storefront to show her all these things that we're selling. And the two things that she always told me with this money that I'm making was, one, to save my money, to stop spending it on frivolous things, things that don't bring you any joy. And two, to make sure that I always help out my family with the money that I'm making.
Mm.
And so those are the two promises that I always kept for my grandmother. Never bought anything that she wouldn't approve of, and that I always use the money to help out family.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that I guess I kind of went on a tangent with like
No,
what
that
you were
was
asking
perfect.
me,
Beautiful.
but that's how I viewed making the content and just making the merchandise. It was always in service of other people and to make sure that my grandmother's requests were fulfilled.
Yeah, and like legacy, like for me, I feel like the people who think that that was a harmful thing are living in scarcity or just don't, can't relate to what your
Yeah.
life is like, and they could never know, right? But I think that's legacy, and it's like just a way to honor her memory. And the thing that's even more beautiful about that, in my opinion, and again, kind of what I was saying earlier about the gift, I feel like you were able to give her is like you did it while she was alive.
Mm.
Like you let her have her flowers while she was alive. Didn't have to wait till she passed to honor her. And that is the most beautiful gift you can ever give someone, And like it just really like that's what I appreciated about you and your content, especially during that time. Like I remember watching your videos and I'm on my way to my grandfather's house to like take care of him, and like you said that you you would watch Prices Right, I think you said all the
Yeah.
time. So us was UConn basketball. So my
Oh,
grandfather was
interesting.
obsessed with. I mean, we're from Connecticut. It's a big thing here. Everyone loves UConn, but he loved UConn women's basketball, and so his favorite player was at the time Olivia Nelson, and I don't even know how it happened. Like just these things that happen, right? It's a pandemic. Everyone's stuck at home. I mean, granted, a community organizer and activist, so like it was really tough for me to be a caregiver and also an activist. But I'm like leading thousands and thousands of people for the Black Lives Matter protests in my community, making sure I'm getting tested and stuff before I even like enter the house. Like and he had a live-in caregiver. I would come when I could, but there had to be a point where like our routine would be interrupted a bit. I would have to stand outside the door because I was around too many people. I couldn't go inside the house. I didn't want to put his health at risk, which was like so heartbreaking and so tough to navigate. But one of the things I said was, I'm going to make it my mission for him to meet Olivia Nelson. I don't know how, but it's going to
Wow.
happen. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And he was getting really sick at this time. He was living at the hospital and I couldn't arrange for them to meet in person. But what was I able to do was Olivia Nelson was on live on Instagram with some two other male UConn basketball players, and they were having a singing competition on live. And just like, hey, like we're bored, like let's hear from the community and who can sing. Like whoever sings can get, we'll feature you on live with us. And I was like, oh shit. So my friends were like, Mimi, like they're on live, like go. Cause they knew like Olivia Nelson was my grandpa's favorite. So I guess it was a good thing I used to sing. Like I used to be in a band or whatever. So I messaged them, was like, hey, like my grandfather's in hospice. It would mean the world if we can like hear from you, make this happen, whatever. Long story short, sang for them. I sang Sunday Morning by Maroon 5, one of my favorite songs. And afterwards, after I sang, I was like, okay, please, I need y'all to record a video for me and address Leonard Wallace so I can show it to him. And they did. And it was like the
Let's
most
go.
beautiful thing. And he, like, he was smiling from ear to ear. He called his friends. He goes, hey, like, I just met, well, not me, but like heard from Olivia Nelson. And like, it was just so beautiful. He showed all the nurses. It was so cute. But like just being able to give him that gift, like just it made me feel so good. And it like just like honoring them, giving them their flowers while they're here, and it's just so beautiful.
That's amazing. I love that you went the great length of like making sure that you got this thing for your grandfather. That's amazing.
I had to do it. I had to do it. And it's interesting too. So like I mentioned briefly, but like last summer I got to, so he passed 2020, but last year I got to meet my biological father's dad, my grandfather. And long story short, I found out they're in Minnesota. This probably sounds so ignorant, but I just didn't know a lot of Puerto Ricans lived in Minnesota. And apparently, my grandfather was a farmer because he planted his seeds all over the United States, and he had kids in like every race, every
Yeah.
racial group you can think of. So I not only met my father's family, I find out I have like 15 aunts and uncles and 49 cousins. Like what? Yeah.
You got a
It
big
was
family.
it was insane. It was like absolute insanity. And I had the opportunity to not be the full-time caregiver, but like be present with him as he, with this cancer diagnosis that he had, and really get to just spend all this time with him. One of the things I was able to do, which is something I will always hold near and dear to my heart, is he was estranged from about four of his kids.
Mm.
Um, because he had kids in every generation. He lived all over the world, and he was in Minnesota. Long story short, I was able to reunite him with his kids that he hadn't seen in like 40 years,
Wow.
50 years. Reunited him with his youngest kids that he didn't speak like 15 years, 10 years. Like there was a lot of family ickiness, messiness, drama from over the years. And I was able to make that happen too. And so I guess where I'm going with this is I feel like it's so awesome. Like no one has to have this grand purpose in life or do big things, but it's like if you can just be super intentional about honoring the people while they're still here, like
Yes.
I just feel like there's so much beauty in that. And like just curious to see like you even like with your grandmother, outside your grandmother, like how do you feel like you are giving people their flowers while you're still here? And do you feel like people are giving you your flowers while you're still here?
That's a good question. It's something you know what's funny, and I'm not saying this because you brought it up. It's something that I have been thinking about so much lately, and it's something that I try to be so intentional about in my life. It's giving people their flowers, and as uncomfortable as it might be sometimes to stop what's going on and like compliment somebody genuinely, not just a compliment for the sake of complimenting, but like
Right.
telling people, hey, these are the things that I feel about you. I felt like you should know because I don't know the next time I'll be able to tell you these things.
Mm,
Right. And I think my grandmother's death really like pushed me to give people their flowers while they're still here, because too often a family member or a friend will pass away and many people will be like, I wish I had said this. There were
yeah.
so many things, like they have so many things to say at their funeral when they probably didn't even get a chance to say it while they were alive.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I have, it's so funny that you brought that up because like I have tried to do that so much for the people that I work with, people in my life, my wife. Anytime I train it like a muscle.
Yeah.
Anytime I feel a sense of gratitude for somebody, I try to tell them right away. Because again, I would hate to live my life knowing that if this person were to ever pass and I didn't get a chance to tell them this, I would feel so much regret for not being able to give them their flowers while they're still alive. So
Mm,
I love that you brought that up, and I think it's a muscle that we can all train, whether you feel it for your spouse or your loved ones or your friends. Like I think we
wow.
owe it to them to text them or to call them and say like, hey, I was thinking about you. I think you're doing great work, and I'm proud of you. And I think that's so important. And and it's not like to get it in return. It's really like, because if you feel like a deep sense of gratitude for somebody, like what a blessing you could be to that person's life by telling them.
Mm, yeah.
So
You don't
yeah,
know what they're going through that day too, and like they need to
100%.
hear
Oh
this.
my
Like,
goodness.
ugh, that's so real. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, with that, and in the nature of flowers and sense of gratitude and everything like that, we are in some really difficult times right now. Um, but in Anicia, right? You said it's her name, your
Yes. Yep.
grandmother. Um, Something I also really love too about your content, just like you're just because of you and who you are and and who she was, you were also naturally kind of like educating people about your culture, and I feel like that's so beautiful, and I think people need to do more of that now, especially with just like attacks on immigrants and um, just trying to other us, like divide us. But like I feel like us being from different countries and different places and being here in the United States, just like honoring our cultures is so beautiful. And so I kind of, if you're open, I would love to hear how were you intentional about integrating your culture in your content, or just like making sure her cultural roots and things like that were known about or are still known about. I just think that's so powerful and so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the beginning, I was less intentional about it. And I think
Yeah.
it just shows through the type of person that I am that, like, this is my culture. These are the things that I experience in my daily life. And I think just being transparent and vulnerable online, like, that just comes naturally. But I think more so after the fact that I heard from fellow Filipinos saying, like, I love that you're speaking Kapampangan, which is the language that I spoke with my grandmother. I love that you're speaking it um, on these videos, because I haven't heard this language since my grandmother passed away like 20 years ago, or like I
Mm,
haven't heard it since I left the Philippines all those years ago.
wow.
And just hearing that, it just made me want to be more intentional about, yeah, like, this is who I am, this is the language that we speak, these are the customs that I grew up following, like, these are the traditions that I grew up following. And um just because for the longest time, like, being a child of immigrant parents, like, for the longest time I was sort of ashamed of that when I was in school,
Mm,
because I would get made fun of for, like, maybe the types of food that we liked, or maybe I would bring lunch that didn't look like a sandwich,
mm,
like.
real. So real.
And I'm ashamed that I was ashamed, but also, like, I think that's a chance for me now to, like, be proud of where my parents came from, and to show the world, like, what how we live our life, because I think that's what makes the world so interesting, right? Like, the way that you live your life and the way that I live my life, there are some parallels, but it's completely different. But I think
Yeah.
that's what makes the world so interesting, is because, like, your culture is different from my culture, and, like, I could learn from how you guys live your life.
Mhm.
I could learn from your customs and your language and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was more intentional about, like, showing my culture and my roots later, in the later half of the caregiving stuff. But yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just think now, I mean, it's been heartbreaking, right, to see how families have been separated and attacked, and it's just been really tough to watch it, right, regardless on people's like views and stuff. Like you're seeing families being torn apart based on just their natural, basic human right of their culture. You can't choose your culture, you can't choose what you were born into, and it's just like so sad. But I've seen videos now of people just like wearing their cultural clothing and cooking the foods and just standing 10 toes on it, because that's what it's about. Like, we're here. You can't get rid of us. Like, this whole country is made up of immigrants, and I just think it's so powerful and beautiful when people share their stories, integrate their cultures in their content, and it's something I've been really mindful of too. So like my family were Latino and Black, so it's like been kind of cool to experience both, best of both worlds, if you will. And from the Latino side, we're Puerto Rican and Dominican. Um, and like I felt so much shame, not like it used to be my first language, it's all I used to speak. But then like, you go to all white schools and then you're bullied and like you're made fun of, and I had poofy curly hair with freckles, and like, like it was just like always so different. And I just didn't want to speak Spanish, and like I didn't want to
Mm,
say it, and like I just felt so ashamed of it. And I'm like, damn, like now I'm like, damn, all I want to do is speak Spanish, but I feel like I've lost a lot of it. Like I understand and I can still speak it fluently, but there's a lot that I've lost of it. And so like I'm like, okay, now that I'm in this content creator journey, like can I be more intentional about like integrating more of my Spanish culture or my Latina culture inside of my content? Because I feel like what we were kind of talking about earlier, like that permission, like if someone sees us doing it, it kind of gives them that permission to do it too. So just love how you're intentional about that, and it's so beautiful and I love it.
and also, to speak on your point of being ashamed and, like, losing some sense of that, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think just
Hmm.
by you just saying that out loud, there's
Yeah.
so many people who can relate to that and say, like, I also was feeling that. I was ashamed to, like, sort of admit that out loud, but now that I hear
Yeah.
Mimi say that, like, now I can move forward with my life knowing that I'm not the only one who was also ashamed of that, but I could move forward
Yeah.
in, like, not erasing that or fixing that time, but just, like, moving forward with more pride in who I was and my
Mm.
culture and my family. So I love
Yes.
that you're self-aware about that. I think it's amazing.
Well, that was the first time I said that out loud. So there you go. Online. So here we are. But I want to pivot just a little bit because I also want to be mindful of your time. But just regarding the content journey, right? And like your creative pursuits, music, content, streaming, all of the different things that you do. You've been able to travel to and do really dope things with your content. Like, what's that experience been like? And like, how would you kind of breathe life into other creatives, creatorpreneurs, founders who are also kind of navigating caregiving or grief and still having kind of the wherewithal to show up and create content and things like that? I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, making videos has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I think I was inspired originally by my dad always having a camcorder in his hands at all times.
Mm,
And I think that's where my love for video came from. So when I started posting videos online, it was a struggle, to be honest with you. It was a struggle in the sense of like these videos aren't doing what I thought they would. But on the flip side of that, I enjoyed it so much because I loved the process of creating the video, and I think that was the only thing that was sustaining me for all those years that nobody ever watched a video of mine. Like if
mm,
you go back through all my old videos, like the only thing that was keeping me coming back to the platform was the fact that I just loved putting the video together, pressing export, and then uploading it. And so I think everybody needs to find that anchor in their creator journey. You need to find that whether it's creating the video that you enjoy, or it's the subject that you love speaking about, or it's the, I don't know, whatever it is in your creator journey, you need to find the anchor. And I think the wrong anchor that people seem to try to hold on to in the beginning is the money aspect.
mm,
Because if you are getting into uh any industry, any creative industry with thinking about money first, I think you're thinking about it incorrectly because there's not going to be any money that comes from it from the very beginning. Sure, there are outliers that who right out the gate, God bless you for for finding that lane.
right,
But
right.
I think for most of us,
Yeah.
hitting upload on those first few YouTube videos or Instagram videos, like it's
Mm,
going to be a struggle in the beginning, and that's okay because we've
yeah.
all gone through it. But that's how you refine your process. That's how you find your voice. And so I think I encourage everybody to find what that anchor, whether it's through the process or maybe it's in some other aspect of the creative process. um, I think just
Yeah.
find that anchor. Luckily for me, it was in the process of like just actually creating the videos, like being in the video editor, being in Final Cut Pro, and
Mm,
like stringing together the story. Like I just found I was so fascinated by it.
mm,
Um, and it's been a long. I mean, I've been on making videos for the internet for like 10 plus years now. I have a long. I've never like deleted or privated a video, and maybe that comes at my own downfall. But I just keep it up because I want people to see like,
the
yo, this
journey.
guy has been around for a long time making all kinds of content.
Yeah. Yeah.
um so
Yeah. So what were
yeah.
some like big L's and like big W's that you experienced? Like big wins, big failures. Not failures because I feel like learning is always, you're always learning. But yeah.
Yeah, I think a huge win for me at the beginning of my uploading journey was those first couple comments that
Mm,
came in from people. Like when I made my first like music production tutorial online and I saw a comment like, wow, this unlocked so much for me.
wow.
Like that was such a high that I rode for a long time, and I kept chasing that because I saw that the thing that I created out of nothing
Mm,
is helping somebody in their own music journey. And it's
wow.
something that I continue to do to this day. Like when I make pieces of content and I read comments of like, wow, this is like helping me so much in my life, that's what I'm going for. Like I'm in the business of service for other people. Yeah, sure, like it's a creative journey, but I'm in service of other people. And that was such a huge win for me and a huge unlock, like knowing that. And that's really when my content like took off, was when I
Mm,
started making content that is in service to other people. The way that you do this podcast and you think about your community and all the people who are also grieving and experiencing all the things that you experienced,
Right.
like I thought about that when I was making these music production videos. Like I'm helping out other music producers. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge win for me. And I love that you say that losses are not really losses. They're like learning lessons. I think, I mean, something that I'm still trying to work through now is not, I guess, leaning too heavy with either positive or negative comments. Cause I think
Mm.
going both ways can be your downfall, right? Like if all you read are positive comments, you kind of put yourself on this pedestal, like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like I am the best. And I think that there's it's valid to be that at sometimes, but if that's all you lean into, then I think you don't leave room for criticism or constructive criticism to grow.
Right.
And if you lean too heavily into the negative comments, it could be to the point where you don't create anything because you're
Mm.
like, you know what, these people are right. Like my videos do suck, you know?
Yeah, you start like internalizing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think at any point in a creator's journey, I think we're going to experience both. We're going to experience people saying negative things about us. That's just the way the world works. And we're
Yep.
also going to experience people saying positive things. But I think leaning too heavily into that and thinking that you are above everybody else could come with repercussions. So
Yeah.
I think not leaning too far heavily into either side is something that I'm still navigating. All these years later, I'm still learning
Mm.
how to navigate both.
That's real. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I had like my first video go viral on YouTube a couple weeks ago, and it was stupid. I'm like, this is the video that goes viral out of all of the other videos, but it happens like that, right? And the video was like, it was some audio track that was going viral on TikTok. Is like, that was rude. That was
Mm,
really effing rude, right? And so I was like, okay, let me hop on this trend. So I had said like, when your dead birth father, you meet your dead birth father's family for the first time, only for your grandfather to die from cancer, and then 2 months later your aunt gets killed in a car accident, right? Like it's humor. Like I know it's not dark humor is not for everybody, but like sometimes that just gets me through. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty freaking rude. But anyway, didn't even perform well at all on TikTok, but like blew up on YouTube. It was like 246,000 views or whatever. But the comments, bro, I was like, yo, YouTube comments can be so brutal. Like I've never like TikTok, you know, here and there, Instagram here and there, but like YouTube, the comments can be so brutal. And I'm like, wow. But I was so proud of myself that I feel like when you move in your purpose and when you're just so like in tune to your own frequency, right? Not from like a goaded perspective of like I'm the best or like, you know, like kind of what you're saying, like pedestal thinking, whatever, but like I just feel grounded in what I'm doing that I was like able to read these comments. Like people were like, oh, did you ever think that maybe you're the reason that they died? I'm like, no, but thank you for saying that, right? Like, you know, and then another person's like, maybe you're just a bad luck charm. I was like, you know, that has crossed my mind a couple times, you know, but just
yeah.
like not internalizing it because I feel like when you have experienced grief, like I feel like you've already experienced one of the worst things you're ever going to experience. So I really just feel like a lot of stuff can't phase me, you know, like granted, yeah, if I were to sit in there and really absorb it, yeah, but I just feel like mental health can be so fragile sometimes, especially when you're dealing with things that we're talking about. But if you have those buffers in place, if you have those grief homes in place, if you have your outlets, your people, your community, and your purpose, like I just feel like I'm unfuckwithable in some way.
Yeah.
Um, but on that too, right? One of the things that always helped me, and I'm really curious about your journey too, right? With creators, especially just starting now, I see a lot of them getting just caught up in the metrics. Um,
Mm,
I don't think it's a bad thing to care about the metrics. At the end of the day, if it's going to help you secure your bag, that's real. In this economy, like I feel that. I feel that now. And like I just became a recently like monetized creator on LinkedIn. And so like that's real, right? Like the metrics do matter to a certain extent. Um, but for me it's just data, right? Like it's just information to kind of move with that can, you know, help inform how you know, create content. Can you create better quality content? And like you should always be in competition with yourself, no one else. Like, okay, this performed this way, how can I do a little bit better next time? But I have to say, something that's so real for me, and experiencing loss, I think, is a curse for sure. It's also a blessing in the sense of it's just helped me not give meaning to things that a lot of people stress about,
Mm,
And like for me, like the worst thing already happened, A, and then B. And I'm like, okay, if no one likes this post, which doesn't really happen now, like I get pretty decent engagement here and there, but if no one engaged with this post, or if this didn't go the way I was hoping it would, listen, if I die tonight or tomorrow, I'm happy that my friends, my family, my community, they have something of me now. Like
so
that to
good.
me means so much more to me. I'm like, well, if it doesn't perform well, this for me, like I'm creating my legacy and like leaving something behind for my people. And like that is literally rooted in why I even created this podcast in the first place. Because I remember being a kid, like I only had like 5 photos of my father. Never heard his voice,
Mm.
never had a video, never had nothing. And like that was always ingrained in my brain. I'm like, damn, like I never even heard my dad's voice, Like I just wanted to, even though we have access to video and photo and all of these amazing tools, right? You can't, like, just to leave something behind is so beautiful. And I feel like I love now when people are probably not the best at content creation, right? But they're putting themselves out there and they're recording videos and they're putting it on in the internet, and like just having that courage. And like for me, that's the most beautiful thing you can do, because no matter how it goes, how it lands, you're leaving something behind for your people. And like, yeah. So I don't know if you resonate with that, or like how do you kind of like navigate the whole metrics conversation? um and you are a monetized creator, right? So like kind of navigating that as well.
Yeah, that's so. I think that's beautiful to have that perspective when posting content, because you can get so. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I get so wrapped up even now. Like if a post doesn't do well, whatever that means, like,
Right.
um, I still sometimes get upset by that, because you put so much effort into these videos and then you put it out and like nobody's watching it. It's like, oh man, like what am I really doing this for? But I think,
Yeah.
and I know the right answer. And sometimes we know all the right things, but we don't practice that in our life, right?
Yeah.
Like I know the right answer when posting these things is like, if this is rooted in the purpose that I have uncovered for myself, and if this is aligned with the mission, who cares if like 2 people saw it? Who cares if 3 people saw it? Like I'm still operating in the way that I believe is the right way to be operating, and it
Yeah.
shouldn't, like, that shouldn't be watered down by the fact that like, oh wow, this is like a low performing video. And something interesting about analytics, and it's something that I've always had a discussion with, like a discussion around with my other creator friends, is the one analytic, or one of many analytics, that don't get shown
Mm.
on any platform is depth.
Mhm.
How deep did this content hit for somebody? Because I have seen so many different videos that have changed my perspective on things, and I never interacted with it. Maybe I liked it, maybe I commented it, but more than likely, I probably didn't interact with it at all. And
Right.
I'm not included in their analytics, but it absolutely changed my life. It
Mm.
absolutely changed my perspective on things.
Right.
And I think it's interesting to think, if you are making a piece of content that you believe is going to help somebody and people see it, I would argue that there is probably going to be somebody that sees it that is going to have their life impacted because of that video. And they might have not commented on the video at all. As
Mhm.
somebody who is like encouraging my community to leave comments on videos, I don't even do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So
It's real.
like, I don't know. I think it's such an interesting way to look at content, because if that's one part of your analytics that don't get shown, and something that is, you really can't like measure unless somebody like sends you a message like, "Hey, I love that video that you made."
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think if you just think that this content is probably going to help somebody, like, I think that's a really strong anchor to keep yourself grounded in. Like, yeah, this content's going to help somebody, whether or not like it's a low performing video. It's probably going to help somebody.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. That's real.
so it's an
Yeah. And
interesting thing to think about.
it is. And one of the things too, so I have a friend named Colin Rocker. He's a big creator on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And TikTok, I would say too. But he focuses on like career content for first generation folks. And He just had a webinar this past Sunday, and he was talking about how his experience has been like monetizing off of LinkedIn. And like
Mm.
a lot of people sleep on LinkedIn, but it's definitely becoming a really top creator platform. And I love it. I've been on it for years. That's always been my platform of choice, just because I felt like it was less superficial and just like real, just like really reading long posts and like people's thought processes. Like I just was always fascinated with how that was, but I knew it was more than a job platform, but people only think it's a job platform, but it's not, and it's changing. But anyways, a shameless LinkedIn plug, but um, Colin frequently talks about ROE, return on engagement. Now, part of that
Mm.
is definitely metrics, right? Like how many likes you're getting, comments, shares, whatever. But I think also part of that is things that aren't measured by brands, right? Like how many mentions did you get? Like how many tags or like whatever did you get in a post, DMs that came from it, or people like leaving meaningful comments like what you said, right? Like, and I will always remember, like with this podcast specifically, like I always use, and I still deal with this thinking a little bit, and it has been a struggle sometimes, but I just always felt like, damn, like I know this is good. Like I know this podcast is good. Like I know it has depth, it has it's meaningful, it's purposeful. But like a lot of people I feel like are not ready to talk about death. They're not ready to talk about
Mhm.
grief, but like that was the thinking that would like stop me from showing up the way I wanted to. Now I have kind of worked through that, and I'm still going to show up regardless. um but it's comments like, literally, I had a pitch competition last summer. I won first place, which was like so wild to me. I was like, wow, like how did this happen? And right before, the day before, I had someone listen to my podcast episode and was like, this episode saved my life. I was thinking of taking my own life, and this episode prevented me from doing that. Like, it's that. It's that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I'm not creating for everyone, and I have to be okay with that. But the right people are going to find me, because I have to keep showing up how I want to, doing the things that bring me joy, like living with my grief and my joy fully, and not, shrinking myself because other people are afraid to be themselves. Like, that's not my problem. That's not my weight to carry. That's you got some things to work through. That's fine. Like, like I need to show up in the way I need to. And so I've been kind of thinking a lot about that concept of return on engagement, and just moving real, moving genuinely, moving authentically. So yeah.
That's so good. I love that. And to, I guess, to drive home the point that I was bringing up, like that person commenting that, imagine how many people felt the same way that have never
Mm,
said anything
I
to
never
you
said it.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we really, really underestimate impressions or views. Like, so, like we're so jaded, right? Like we
Yep.
forget how many people 100 people is. We forget how many people 50 people is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know. I just think
Yeah.
like it's so interesting to think if you at least impacted one person in the way that that person left a comment on your video but have never said anything, wouldn't that be enough to continue posting? Wouldn't that be enough to continue doing podcasts with other guests?
Right.
To me, I think it's clear, like for sure, like if I could save one person's life with a post,
Right.
how could I not
Right.
continue to post?
Right.
So yeah,
That's
return
good.
on engagement. I love that. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I guess to take it a step further, like think about people who don't even engage
Mm,
with your content.
exactly. The
Yeah,
invisible metrics. The
yes, the
invisible
invisible
metrics, right?
metrics, which
Yeah.
brand like companies, they can't. It's hard to put money behind invisible metrics, but I think it's so real.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow, so good. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Well, what's something that you wish, what's something that's been on your heart, maybe that you haven't created a video on yet, or just something you've been really wanting to talk more about in your content that maybe you haven't yet, that, like, for instance, like there's this question I asked at a conference the other day, but it's like, what are the stories that we are afraid to tell, that we haven't been able to lean into as much yet, right? And like, you're already so vulnerable and so open. Like, are there any stories that you hold as like too sacred to kind of lean into, or are there stories that you've been wanting to share but maybe have not been yet? Kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
That's good, and I think um, I want to try my best to make sure that it doesn't come across like I see this as my strength.
Yeah.
But maybe some people see it as a strength. But I think I've just been so vulnerable and transparent on the internet, again, to my own downfall sometimes, because sometimes I'll overshare with people. I'm just an open book with everybody
Yeah.
that I meet and the content that I make, that like
That's how I feel too.
sometimes it's come back to like really bite me hard. And I've had to have like conversations on the side with either my parents or my cousins, like, hey, we saw this piece of content that you made that we don't think is like, we don't know
Felt.
if you should be sharing that.
Felt.
So there isn't anything sacred really that I haven't spoken on. But something that's been on my heart a lot is looking out for yourself, and not in a way that is selfish, but in a way that's actually of service to other people. Because I think, and I'll just be candid, like, my one of my parents, like my mom actually just had, she went to the doctor recently and got her blood done, and it shows that her cholesterol is like it's higher than it should be, right? And it's not until people get these like checks from the doctor that they then start looking out for their health.
Mm,
And I've just really been thinking a lot about, like, if you care about the people that you love and the people that are in your life, and your spouse, your cousins, your family, your parents, whoever it is that are in your life that you love, if you truly love these people, then you owe it to them to look after your health
mm,
in whatever way that means for you, whether it's being more active, or just being more mindful of the things that you eat, or even being more mindful of the things that you consume on the internet, because I think that in itself could be, it could take a toll on your mental health.
amen.
So like, I
That's
don't
so
know, I
real.
just been thinking a lot about like taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's actually an act of love for the people that you love.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking care of yourself, that means you can show up better for your parents. You can show up better for your spouse. You can show up better for the people that you serve, because you're coming from a good place. I think that's why, like,
Yeah.
people who leave negative comments are always, I'm just going to make an assumption here, they're always coming from a negative place.
Yeah.
Like, to leave a negative comment on a video means you're not really doing the best.
You took the time to do
You took
that.
the time to say that,
Right.
so you must be going through it. And so that's something that's been on my heart recently, is just like really taking care of myself, because it's actually an act of love for the
Mm.
people that I love.
That's so real. Like you ever hear like it's such a flex when people are like, "Oh, I'll die for my family. I'll take a shot for you." Da, 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 da. But like, I don't want you to die for me. I want you to live for me. Like
Yes.
live for me. you know? It's so real though, Like I'm not gonna lie, I used to be one of those people. I was like, man, like
Yeah.
especially like now, like I will take a bullet for any one of my people. But like, okay, that's cool. Thank you. I love you. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. But what are you doing to live for me? What are you doing to live for
That's
yourself?
so good.
Like
That's so good.
and we only do have this one life. Like before, and I still kind of struggle with it a little bit, but like just with so much loss that I've had, like I do feel like I run out of time sometimes. Like I just feel like there's so much I want to do in such a short amount of time. Like I'm just on this like time clock, if you will. I mean, it's real, right? Because anything can happen at literally any moment. So that's still top of mind for me. But like I feel like now I've kind of just reframed that into being like, you know what? With the time that I do have, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to live like it's a privilege. I want to live life fully in whatever way that looks like for me. And for me, that's creating content every day and like genuine content that I want to create. It's being with other grievers, making coffee now is like a new thing that I like to
Let's
do. Just
go.
being with my people, making music. I'm about to learn DJing because I have like 170 something playlists. I'm like, it's okay, it's time. It's time to turn this into this hobby. Like, just like trying different things and being happy and like just following this compass of joy, I guess, if that makes sense, and like literally letting that guide my path, being healthy, taking my CMOS every single day,
Let's
walking.
go.
I've been walking 4 miles a day. I'm like trying to get better into the gym and like just living presently in whatever way that looks like for me, right? And so that's so real. Like let's live for ourselves, let's live for each other, right? And like that we only have one life. So
So good. I love the
yeah.
the reframe of like, hey, I love that you would die for me, but like, it would be
Yeah.
even better if you've lived for me, because I'd prefer if you just didn't, like, I'd
Don't
prefer if
die.
you were around.
Literally. Oh man. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to just share, with everyone listening in, maybe grievers for the first time, creatorpreneurs, like whatever's on your heart, something I didn't get to ask you that you want to share?
Well, first, I would love to speak on the thing that I said that I'm trying to do more of, which is giving people their flowers. And I would love to give you some encouragement of, like, I love that you're doing this podcast, and I love that you're taking time and energy, because this takes all of this, like hopping on here, like finding a guest, like scheduling, like this takes effort. Like, people just see the finished product, right? Like, we just see the video that happens to be on LinkedIn or like YouTube or like wherever these get shared. Like, people just see the final product, but they don't see all the back end work of, like,
Mhm.
working out a schedule, which is a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
Like, that takes like some time to go back and forth with somebody to like find time. So I would love to just give you some encouragement that I am so happy that you're doing this, and that you're
Thank
speaking
you.
to this community, and that you're continuing to talk about grief. And like, it's funny to say normalizing grief, but like, it's such a prevalent thing, and it's going to be a prevalent thing in everyone's life, whether they want to be a
Right.
part of this club or not.
Right.
I think you're doing such great work with this
Thank
that
you.
um, people on the other side of it, like whether they leave comments or not, I would take the bet that you're saving so many people's lives, and that you're helping so many people in their journey, whether they're saying it to you or not. And so I want to give you some encouragement for, like, stay on this path. And like, I love that you're rooted in purpose, and that you're trying to help out your community and other people who are going through it, because I just think it's so beautiful. It's
Mm.
so beautiful to be doing the things that you're doing, and I see you. I don't see everything that you're doing, but I at least know the little things that you do to make things like this happen.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'll be rooting for you.
Wow. I'm gonna cry about that later. After I journal. Thank you. It literally means it means everything. It literally means everything.
Also, to be like on LinkedIn, like, and pop in, like, I think that's great. I love it. I love that LinkedIn is becoming. I mean, even me,
We gonna get your LinkedIn up there.
I know,
We gonna
right?
talk.
So I love that you're on LinkedIn, and trying to reframe it from like, oh, this is all business, and like, you're trying to add a fresh perspective to it, which I love.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I got to learn from. I mean, learn from you, learning from creators who are just like unapologetically bold and sharing their story. And like, I just feel like there's so much power and so much community connection. There's so much good in sharing our story. Like, I don't. I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing bad has happened from me sharing my story, but like, it's just when you lead with vulnerability and you lead with just being authentic, which that word is thrown a lot around, but like, I'm just being so real about it. Like, lean more into your story. Like, your message is in your mess. It's in the first four
Mm,
letters of message. Your message is in your mess. And like, really learning to alchemize that the pain into purpose. And it doesn't always have to be that way, right? Like, not everyone is supposed to have this like grandiose purpose in life, but if you can find purpose in living and showing up presently, right, and learning to alchemize some of the challenges that you've been having, like, that's so good. That's so good. And you get to learn from folks like Chris, folks like me, other creatorpreneurs. Yeah. But Chris, I am so honored to have you on the show. So honored to learn more about your story, your grandmother, and kind of like the behind the scenes that maybe people don't really know. Um, yeah, I'd be honored to have you again one day, maybe in person. Like, one of the goals I have with the show is to definitely bring it in person one day. But I think it's really cool to not be bounded by like location and be able to do it virtually and like meet people all over the world, essentially. But what an honor it was to have you on the show and to learn more about you, your story. I'm so excited for you and your journey. It's so awesome to be in your life. And yeah, just to do this was truly a gift. So thank you for that.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope we can do it in person next time.
Yes.
And I'll take you up on that offer for checking out the restaurant and the cafe. I won't forget about that. You mentioned food, and like, my heart was singing ever since you mentioned that. So I hope we
Yes.
can do this again.
Love it. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone who tuned in. Please let us know your comments, what you thought about it. Subscribe to Grief Sense. We're also on Instagram and on TikTok, so definitely follow along. And definitely follow Chris if you haven't already. Like, join his 6 million community across socials. You will not be disappointed. All right. Gracias, familia. I will see you on the next episode. Bye.